All right, my next guest is one of my buddies that followed me down from Chicago to sunny South Florida.
That's right.
Welcome to the show, Brandon Beavers.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time coming, you and I, to get together and catch up.
And we made it happen. After bumping into each other.
I run into you at baseball games and stuff. We're like, we got to get together. So today we'll make it happen.
Right.
Talk to me about your transition from Chicago to Miami, man. I mean, you are that wave, right? In the last 4 years where for one reason or another, COVID or whatever, came down to Miami. What has your experience been like? You're in Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah, I'm in Fort Lauderdale. It's been great. And I think what really helped it was my kids, my oldest boys started baseball in the fall and there weren't enough coaches. Mm-hmm. And so the president of the league called, we were waitlisted, right? And he started calling me coach, even though I said I wasn't going to coach in the fall. Started calling me coach. And, at the end of the day, I said, look, if there's going to be 13 kids that don't have a baseball team, I guess I'll do it. And he's like, okay, thanks, coach. And 5 minutes later, a guy walks up the street, knocks on the door and says, hey, I'm Mr. So-and-so, welcome to the neighborhood. And that was kind of my first introduction with, our community, you know? And so when we first, during COVID, were making the decision that we're going to move down here, we were kind of, wondering what the community was going to be like being from the Midwest. Everybody's everyone's friend there. But, we said, look, in my mind, I'm thinking, we'll just stick to our family. Yeah. We'll be in our own little bubble. And frankly, it's been quite the opposite. I mean, we're probably as, if not more involved in our community down here.
Really?
Yes. And so when I started coaching, and meeting the parents, meeting a bunch of kids from different schools, because the neighborhood we live in, there's a lot of kids that go to different private schools, or, I don't know if you call them charter schools down here, but, or private schools. Mm-hmm. So you're meeting kids from all over. Yeah. And that's been great, so you just get a lot of diversity in thought and people and all that sort of thing. But the baseball was the best intro to South Florida.
And are you meeting people who are from down here, or these people like you, just newbies?
About half and half. Okay. On baseball, I would say, half of them are, kind of native Floridians, if you will. And then the other ones are, from all over. A lot, mostly from the East Coast-ish, some from the Midwest. But, the other great thing about doing all that was the kids having friends in school. You know? They walk into school, they already have a couple friends. Yeah. And then, spring, they have, friends from all over from the school. So our social network has grown because of all these different schools and folks. And so it's been awesome. It's been a lot better.
It's crazy. COVID obviously was bad, right? But it was good for South Florida. Right. And I was excited that you came down because there are so many people just like you that are in the prime of their career. Right. They own and operate businesses and they come down here. And when people were out pitching big businesses to move to their community. I always said, look, South Florida can't take on Dell or Oracle, whatever, right? We just don't have the infrastructure. But can we take a lot of guys in their prime, still want to build businesses that have 20, 50, $100 million companies that come down here that have, 200 employees, 50 employees, whatever. Those kind of folks, I love them. Right. And the amount of people that I've met, and that's why I think South Florida, our best days are ahead of us, not just, all the hype. It takes time to build that infrastructure. Right. But I think if you look 20 years from now, you and I are going to be very happy that, and I love Chicago. Chicago's going to be fine. But we're going to look back on and say, look, we were at the early stages of what South Florida has really become.
Absolutely. And I think, there's a lot of variables there. Cause ultimately my parents had a place in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale, since the late 80s, mid to late 80s. So I've always been coming down here. Mm-hmm. And I kind of always envisioned living somewhere warm, and then your career gets in your way. You're working this job, or someone acquires a business and you're now working in a different state, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes, you get very few instances in your life where you can really dictate where you want to be and where you want to go. And so I think there was a time prior to COVID that we were pretty close, but I just don't think it was ready. We were ready to do it yet, business wise, family wise. But COVID kind of convinced me, hey, we can make this leap because of all the, remote management and things. And trust me, there was a lot of growing pains going through that. And, I'm kind of a hands-on person. I like to, if I have an issue, I like to go put my hands on it, talk to the people. And you can't just jump on an airplane in 5 minutes and be where you want to be, where I could drive to any of our plants in Chicago and be there within, an hour. So that you kind of lose that sense of control. There's a little anxiety, involved in that. But this was kind of part of my vision in life, I think, ultimately, was to be down here.
To be down here.
Right. And, I didn't realize how much it was going to help me, really, because I think, a lot of entrepreneurs or anybody in a business world or in any career, frankly, you get in a pot, and you can get root bound in that pot.
Yeah.
You know a lot of people, but, how do you grow? Right.
Right.
So for me, it's really forced me to grow in other ways that I wouldn't have grown had I stayed in Chicago. I see things differently. I see opportunities a little differently. And I'm exposed to a whole new, network of people and friends that, I think has really kind of broadened my horizons in terms of, what I could do. But I think to your point, it's perfect. And I think where the benefit is really going to hit is that area between like Palm Beach and
100%.
Miami. Yeah. Because, it's getting costly. And I'll put a plug in for Fort Lauderdale. I think it's ripe. I mean,
It's great.
Because, you got a great airport there,
Yep.
So you don't have to commute to either PBI or to Miami. And it's growing in a positive way, where a lot of younger people are coming in.
Man.
That was the one thing that, everybody was kind of, white knuckling down the road. Now you have a lot more young people coming in that demand different services. They need a dry cleaner. They need a tailor. So those year-round services are kind of filling out. The restaurants are getting better. We can't compete with Miami yet.
No, but the restaurants are better.
Getting better.
The Brightline being a major impact for this community.
Absolutely.
I take it whenever I go to West Palm Beach, and now it goes to Orlando, and then sometime next year, Tampa.
Right.
And I'm like, man, that's going to be a big impact. We've never had that.
Not having to go to an airport is nice.
Not having to go to airport, and that drive is going to make a big impact. Take a step back. You and I know each other, but I don't know a whole lot about Beaver Holdings.
Right.
What's the business? I know a little bit about it. Tell us about it.
So essentially, it's a little bit of a misnomer because it's not actually a holding company, from a legal standpoint. But what it was is that, my father, when he had left McDonald's, right, he was used to, he's a board member there for 20 years. You're used to a certain level of expertise and professionalism, where when you build a company, you don't necessarily have all those resources, right? So the vision was we started off with one company, and as we grew those, we could share resources. So we would share an accounting team, we'd have a CFO, HR. So instead of having those at each individual facility, if you have a $15 million company, it's kind of hard to have a high level executive team. Whereas you build and, you gross up those businesses, ultimately now you need those levels of service, and you kind of can, cross collateralize those, those services. And it really is a impactful thing. Especially, when you think about when you go through things like COVID or, you have shared resources. So, hiring people, for instance, you can imagine, if you have kind of belts and suspenders because you use the same accounting system. We're losing this person or they're sick and they're going to be gone for a month. Now you can kind of tap the resources across companies. You get a chance to cross-train people. And, some of the best success stories we've had is kind of pulling talent from one company to another. You kind of identify someone that they may not have an opportunity at that particular company, but now they have an opportunity to grow at another one. So that was kind of the original vision, is just to kind of provide a higher level of skill sets and, in a more of an executive platform than you could.
And what are the different businesses within it?
Right. So now the original company, we no longer have the original company that kind of started it, if you will. But we're probably, we're more than 10 times bigger than we were when we first started. So right now we still have Best Diamond Packaging, which is a company on the East Coast that manufactures, it's a paper conversion facility. So we take, several ton rolls of paper, and we are, folding them or cutting them and folding them in napkins. And those are, going to all the major QSRs in the country. And then we have a company in Chicago called Best Diamond Plastics, which is an extrusion company that makes straws, if you can imagine. We could talk a little bit more about that, because, that's, the enemy of the state right now is straws for some reason.
Which is good, right. All the things that we're worried about plastic straws.
Right. So we should circle back on the straw conversation because, I'm an animal lover too.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of gotten, the show.
It's a little out of control.
Yeah, right. It is, yeah. But then we have Affy Tapple, which is a confections company in Chicago.
Yeah.
We invented the original, not we, but the first owners of the company really kind of made caramel apples a household item in Chicago, particularly in the fall. And we do a lot of other confections out of that facility too. That's up in Niles, Illinois, so not too far from the airport. And then we have Best Chicago Meat Company. So that company,
Okay.
we do a lot. We have our own brands. We have Glenmark and Moonawake and Gem.
Uh-huh.
So we do burgers, sausages, things of that nature. We do a lot of co-manufacturing. So a lot of the branded items that you'll see in the store, they're products that we've made. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there too.
I have to ask you, Affy Tapple, 75 years in business.
75 years.
First of all, how did you get that brand?
I'm not old enough quite.
Right. So
yeah, yeah, right.
Because
So
for people who don't live in Chicago, I mean, it's nationwide, but
right,
in Chicago, you know that brand.
Right.
And it's delicious and it's super fresh.
Right.
My only beef is that you didn't bring any today.
I know.
But
You get the
75
package.
Yeah, it's in the mail.
It's in the-
I'll talk to the shipping department. So first of all, 75 years, got so many questions. Number one, how did you acquire that brand?
Right. So it had been acquired, a number of years before we did. I think about 20 years.
Okay.
The prior owner had owned it. He was another Chicago guy. And, so they acquired it. It was a brand that he was familiar with. So what made Affy Tapple popular in the Chicago area was that it was really, yes, they did caramel apples, but they started selling them for almost like for fundraisers, almost
Right.
like a cookie sale or whatever, or a bake sale.
Yeah.
And so we literally had Affy Tapple Day at school on our calendar with the logo of Affy Tapple. So growing up, that was a day you looked forward to all the time because you're going to be eating a bunch of caramel apples.
Yeah.
So that's how it became kind of so ingrained, like with people's lives in Chicago, because you ate it as a kid, you know, and it reminds you of that. They're actually pretty healthy, believe it or not. They're healthier than eating a candy bar or something.
Yeah, you're right.
Because you've got the protein, from the caramel,
Right.
And you're eating a whole apple with the skin on it.
And some nuts, right? What kind of nuts are they?
Peanuts.
Peanuts, okay, yeah.
Right, that's the traditional. That's our number one seller by
Yeah.
far. I'm kind of a traditionalist. I hate to say it, but I like the plain caramel.
Okay.
That's my favorite. Some people, get upset when I say that, but hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But yeah, the peanut probably outsells the plain by 8 or 9 to 1. Yeah.
So 75 years, without giving away too many secrets, what's the secret of success? I mean, to staying in business and being a big business for 75 years is
right.
really hard.
And I think, one is, you have to have passion. Right?
Yeah.
And the original owners, they had passion for that formula. So the family, there's a story out there, but essentially, she was involved in another candy related business, and she developed that formula and developed the formula to dip the apples in it, and then it kind of just snowballed from there, if you will. But there was such a focus on maintaining the integrity of that formula.
Right.
It's the same formula we use. And, so fresh apples, I mean, the apples are coming from Michigan at that time of year. So they're coming straight off the orchard, being washed and sorted, et cetera, and they're coming straight to our facility. So much fresher than an apple that you would get in a store, for instance. But, so that's part of it. So it's that, the starting with the
Commitment to quality, right?
Commitment to quality, not cutting corners. I mean, there's just...
Because you can't buy it everywhere in Chicago, right? Now I think about it.
You pretty much can buy it.
Okay.
But what we're trying to do is make it more of a year-round business.
Okay.
Because we've proven that people will buy it year-round.
Yeah.
And you can get apples year-round, right?
Right.
I mean, but a lot of the produce sections that are in it, they've got a traditional philosophy of certain fruits need to be in produce during certain times of the year. So, when fall's over, or when summer's around, they go to pitted fruits and things of that nature. So, but, we're violating, I call it, other areas of the store. We're gifting. We've got, our gourmet apple program is, we're probably up over 100% this year in our gourmet apple program, which is just a larger apple. It's a Granny Smith. There'll be M&Ms on the outside of it, or chocolate lovers. And we also have some that are, they're decorated a little bit differently. They're kind of a higher end product. That is really taking off. But the Affy Tapple brand, as everyone knows, that. But the other brand that is more of a national brand is Mrs. Printables. That's part of the same company. So the prior owners had bought Mrs. Printables, which is basically up the street from Affy Tapple.
Okay.
So where that company got notoriety was, Bloomingdale's and even Marcus. Those are a much more expensive apple. But I mean, you're talking about 2.5 pounds sometimes of caramel and chocolate and nuts. So it seems like it's expensive till you grab it.
Yeah.
And, you have to make sure you have your balance. But it's an awesome product. And again, these, we have growers out in in Washington that we're on the phone with all year round. What's going on with the crop? Same thing with our folks in Michigan, but they kind of have designated areas where they're growing our specific apples.
So how do you manage your time? You have a consumer facing business in the AFI business,
Right.
and then you have sort of call it a B2B back office, distribution and manufacturing business. How do you spend your time? Very different businesses.
A lot of time on the phone.
Okay.
I mean, it's and it never ends. I mean, it only ends when you make it end. I mean, I'm sure you know the feeling. I think I've learned, and COVID. One thing that we went through with COVID, right, was everything was an emergency all of a sudden.
Right.
Whether your company was applying for PPP loans or knowing the regulations, can we stay open? Can we not? Where can we go? The hardest thing for me was, I felt like when we have employees out there, we're sending them in the line of fire.
Sure.
Right. I'm looking at my cell phone 4:00 in the morning in the meat company. I mean, you start early.
Yeah.
And so, you're looking at these, so-and-so got sick, and you're like, geez, is this what we're supposed to be doing here? But frankly, a lot of those folks, they wanted to be there. They wanted to support our customers. They didn't want to let anyone down. But there was a time where we had to shut down for a little while, and we knew it was going to be tough, because what happened is all these big companies, they were really shut down, right? Because it was running rampant. We had the proper PPE stuff early on, so we were able to taper it, and our business was booming at that time.
Really?
So it went from not knowing if we were going to stay open, to and we had some casual dining customers that we were really growing our steak business.
Yeah.
Called us up and said, if you have any inventory, you need to get rid of it. We don't know when we're going to be able to open our restaurants. So we go from, this great success story, prior to COVID, to all of a sudden we're not going to have a casual dining steak business anymore, right? But what we were able to do is pick that up in retail, because a lot of the other big companies weren't able to supply grocery stores. So we had some great success. That's just business.
But that's when that's when the good businesses survive,
That's
right? When this wild
adapt,
card
right.
and you adapt, and the bad ones that have a bad culture and aren't organized, you have a good corporate structure, you can maneuver. The ones that you just said it, you were shut down, but the employees still wanted to go to work. They didn't want to let people down.
That's right.
That tells me you probably run a pretty good company.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Appreciate that.
I promise you that the companies that the employees are like, great, I don't want to go in there and listen to the boss.
Right.
They probably have a pretty rotten culture. So you're doing the right things in order to facilitate that. But
as far as managing the time, I mean, so, for instance, the other thing, along that COVID thing, and why I was bringing it up is, you have successes and failures. I mean, we had a year with one of our companies where sales were at an all-time high, but our profitability was miserable. Right. Because you're paying more for items.
Yeah.
Trying to
Labor's
get stuff out.
crazy.
Labor was crazy. Customers weren't accepting at that time, price increases. They're like, oh no, we don't see this inflation thing coming. Well, guess what?
It's here, man.
Yeah, exactly. And then you looked at their earnings and go, I told you. You know what I mean? And I mean, that's real. Our bigger customers, I got to say, like the McDonald's, they were fantastic to work with. I think it actually, reset the relationship to even a better point than it ever was, because they realized, like, hey, these guys are, they're stepping up for us, and they're making sure we don't run out of product. We didn't short any of our customers during that time.
It's pretty impressive. You've had a relationship with McDonald's for how many years?
Since I was born.
Yes.
My father started working there when he was 17, and literally in a restaurant in Washington, D.C.
No way.
Yes. Yeah, he and my mom were high school sweethearts, and there was a McDonald's right up the street, and she convinced him to get a job there, and he said, I don't want to flip burgers. And he fell in love. Like he really fell in love with the business, and he had a great mentor that kind of brought him along. And the franchisee that my dad worked for got bought out by McDonald's, and he said, if you buy me out, you got to have this guy Bob Beavers to run your restaurants. Because he's running all my restaurants.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he got an interview with Ray Kroc, Fred Turner.
Wow.
And they gave him a corporate job. And he said, all right, hon, we're moving. We're moving to Chicago.
That's how you ended up in Chicago.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, managing that relationship, a special relationship with an iconic brand. Right. And now it's passed on to you. How do you do it?
My dad had a passion for it.
Yeah.
I think, when you have a customer relationship like that, or if you have a brand, it's the passion that kind of keeps you going.
Yeah.
Right. So most of our customers, I have a passion for what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes, that gives our companies our mission to be able to service them the way they need to be serviced.
Right.
Whether it's a retail or it's a person that's having our product across the counter, we want to make them all happy. So time management, right, with COVID, everything was right now. All the legal things right now.
Yeah.
People are working around the clock. I don't think we've kind of gotten back to normal yet.
No.
from that. But what I did learn is, if I wanted to have a long life,
Yeah.
right, or a relatively long life, I needed to put boundaries on that.
Yeah.
Because I last time you saw me before I moved down here, I didn't have all these gray hairs in my beard.
But it made you a better executive, right?
It
made you
did,
who you are today.
It did. I mean, and I took some deep wounds, man.
Man. We all did.
I had some real tough times, but I've learned from them. I've absolutely learned from them, but I've pivoted from them.
What are some of those takeaways? So 2 or 3 takeaways.
Well,
that you coming out of COVID, being in the food industry,
right?
You were in pretty tough states, Illinois, right. New Jersey, hard lockdowns.
Well, you can't spread yourself too thin. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing I learned because I was trying to do so much.
Yeah.
I became the easy button for a lot of people, and so I wouldn't, I would work myself, damn near to death, right?
Yeah.
And I have young kids too.
Yeah.
So trying to be a decent father, a good husband, and and also basically you sacrifice a lot of yourself a lot of times, and I just was exhausted, and you don't realize it until you look back and you go, my gosh, I mean, I was really, because I would work at night and I'm reading emails and all that stuff. So I've learned to put boundaries in now. If I say that I'm not feeling well and I'm sick, I really mean it, and don't call me.
Right. Don't call me. Yeah.
Don't go, well, did you see those 10 emails we sent? No, because I told you I was actually sick, and I never really call in sick. So if I do, that means it's real, taking time to work out, exercise. COVID, I was able to, especially when the weather started to change a little bit in Chicago, my wife bought me Power Beats, and I would take 2 hours phone calls walking. So I lost weight, the good way as opposed to from stress.
Right.
I can always tell that I'm in a pretty good, mode because I start to gain weight. Most people eat when they gain weight when they eat. I'm the opposite. I lose weight when I'm stressed. Right. And when things are getting a little bit better, I start to
next time I see you, if you put on a few,
right.
I know what's going on.
Yeah, tell me if my shirt's tight next time you see me.
This episode is brought to you by Buena Vista Creative, Miami's premier digital marketing agency. Visit buenavistacreative.com for more info on how Buena Vista can help your business increase revenue and create the brand and digital presence it deserves. Video and podcast production, web and app development, search engine and social media marketing, logo creation, outdoor, print, swag, and more. Visit buenavistacreative.com to learn more.
All right. And so in reevaluating everything, you got this big business, lots of moving parts, but you're somehow able to manage it somewhat remote, right? You're down here in Florida, most of the business is up north. How do you do it? Time management? What's the secret sauce?
Yeah, well, it was during COVID, it was a challenge because you couldn't get good people. If you lost someone or let someone go, replacing them was very difficult. So we had some talent that quite wasn't up to snuff. Yeah. Now we're kind of back into our groove a little bit with the right folks, but that's it. It's trust. I mean, you have to know that when you kind of appoint someone to do something or have a conversation, they're going to take it and run with it. And you have to trust them a little bit. And sometimes it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But at least if you the more time you spend with them, the more they get to understand what your expectations are and maybe how you would want them to do it.
Yeah.
So that's key is people, right?
So let me go back to the straw.
Yeah. Right.
Plastic straw versus paper straw. Yeah. Every city jumped on this,
is it
majoring in the minor.
Right.
What are your thoughts on it?
Right.
Because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this kind of all started, if you recall, the turtle.
The turtle with the thing in the nose, right?
Right. Which is awful.
Horrible.
Right.
Horrible.
It's awful. I mean, we're talking, anything having to do with, oil or plastics or whatever, this is not going away. I mean, there's so much infrastructure, so many people say, I mean, think about all the jobs, all the manufacturing that's done.
Right.
There's chemistry out there that, I mean, everything that goes into a straw came from the earth, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a dinosaur one.
Sure, right.
So just the same way that these compounds, are changed, they can be changed back, to their initial elements, right? So, there's been studies of really kind of, some of those processes. There's certain things that you can put in them. They're not chemicals per se. They're additives that you could put into them that allow them to break down to their element. But I remember when all this thing was going down and paper straws was kind of the new quote unquote thing. Yeah. And someone handed me a paper straw and it had plastic wrap on it.
So that's what I was going to go with.
And I'm dying laughing, saying, what is the irony of this?
Yeah.
Or it's, shrink wrapped in a case,
exactly.
Right?
It's
to get
ridiculous.
It to where it needs to be. It is. But I think we need to focus on, science.
Yeah.
And how we can utilize these things more efficiently, how we can dispose of them more efficiently. because ultimately that's going to solve the problem. I mean, you've had a paper straw in Florida and it falls apart in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more energy and water to actually make a paper straw than it does to make a plastic straw. So like you said, you're majoring in the minors, so you're using all this energy. It's slower, it's more expensive,
and there's bigger things to tackle.
Right, there's bigger things to tackle. It's just the same thing with lids, or they're talking about instead of a straw, we're going to use a lid. Well, that uses more plastic.
Yeah.
So it's just,
and this is what our leaders waste their time on.
Right, I know.
It's so upsetting.
And it's difficult because the companies, it's hard for them to take a stance, right? They don't want to be the first one to jump out there and say, we're gonna do this. But the good news is that the team that the partners at that business and in plastics, they're on the cutting edge. They're ready. I mean, they're ready. There's actually some products out there that, like I said, you can either have an additive that will break down that particular material so that it's literally ash, at some point. But there's also compounds that are made from wood pulp and things of that nature. And I'm telling you, they look like glass, the straws. They're beautiful.
Really?
So it's just a matter of, who's going to be the first taker. And we think we know who it's going to be. But, we'll see. We'll have that follow-up.
Well, so you're going to send me straws, some
Send me
Affy,
straws,
a bunch of stuff.
straws.
real straws.
Yeah.
All right. You're a smart business guy. I love Chicago. Lived there for 15 years.
Right.
You were born and raised there. The city's
I
got a
was
little.
born in D.C. actually.
You were born in D.C.,
Yeah,
but
I moved
raised
to
in
Chicago when I was 5. Yeah,
Okay, but you're a Chicago guy.
Yeah, I moved
Chicago
there
sports,
during the Payton
everything.
era. Yeah,
Payton
Jordan.
era.
Yeah,
The Jordan era.
The good years.
The good
right?
years. The city's gone a little sideways.
Yes.
How do we fix it, man?
Oh, geez.
This is a
that's
conversation
deep
I have
question.
with all
Yeah.
the guys like you and I.
Right.
And I know, I'm not joking, man. 40, 50 people from the Chicagoland area who are friends that I've become friends with that moved to South Florida, and they're all around our age and the same thing. And we talk about it because I go back all the time. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm getting close to 50, man. So, but like, how do you fix it, man?
Right.
Because it is fixable.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's something that keeps me up at night.
Me too.
Because I love mentoring kids. We've got to start, with the youth.
You got to start early, right?
And I think the problem is, this is a multi-generational issue.
Yeah.
Goes back to segregation.
Yeah, sure, man.
So you're not gonna,
it's still a pretty segregated city, and for a big city, I don't think enough people realize that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the diversity might be in the workplace, but it's not at home. Right.
No, man.
So that's a big issue because what's happened is, I remember people, if you listen to a Chicago accent, if you talk to like someone from the African American community,
right, in
Chicago, they sound like they're from Mississippi. It's like,
yeah, you're right.
The terms they use, the sayings and expressions they use. So if you think about what had happened was, and maybe I'm getting a little too deep on this, but think about University of Chicago, right? Hyde Park.
Yeah.
That is a very educated, African American community historically because of the schools. They had the papers.
Obama's from there.
Right. They had the papers there, right? So that was one of the first waves of, if you want to call it, migration from the South was, to areas like that. The second migrations were people moving to the factories.
Yeah.
It was relatively unskilled labor that was moving to, grow these manufacturing businesses. So during segregation, those folks lived in certain neighborhoods. And if that plant closed down, you couldn't take the bus to go to another neighborhood. So they were the first to lose their jobs. And they were, I hate to say that, they were relatively unskilled and uneducated.
All those steel jobs that dried up, you're right.
Right. But they didn't have the education that the folks in Hyde Park had. Right. So that's when I talk about the generational issues. That's what it is. So a lot of uneducated folks that, were the first to kind of be they'd be the first man out and the plant would close. So that's been an issue in the Chicago area for a long time. And frankly, in most, metropolitan areas, you have that, so you have the have-nots. And then you throw the powder keg of drugs into that mix. And, so we've got to really look back at like the history. That's why I think it's so important that we do talk about history, because I would hear people say, well, I don't understand why, someone living in a neighborhood can't just do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
It's
not as simple as that.
It's not as simple as that. Yeah. So, I don't think the check, is going to do it.
No, I don't think so.
You can't throw money at this issue. No. And I think where we are now, I really unfortunately think we do need to get to, having a better police force that's more, that's more present in some of these neighborhoods. And I'm also kind of a bootstraps person. I mean, I think that, certain certain cultures and certain groups just need to kind of say, look, we need to own this and we need to fix it ourselves.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, there's nothing, no one else out there can fix your own problems better than you can.
Of course.
So that's the answer that not a lot of people want to see. And that's probably why I'll never be in politics.
But that's why you should be in
right,
politics.
maybe,
That's the thing.
maybe. But, I think that we've got to, get back to the, days of the 50s and 60s where, your kid was going to school.
Yeah, man.
We have the right and opportunity to go to school, and you were going to dress up and you're going to do the best you can. That was my parents' generation.
Yeah.
And I look at all my parents' friends; they're all very successful. Yeah. They've got wonderful families. They're well educated, but we just need to kind of take that back on our own.
Build a good ecosystem of people, good
That's
mentors, which I think is really, really important.
Absolutely.
And then just the fundamental, right? Safety, shelter,
Right.
access to good education, after school programs.
Absolutely.
That's the foundational stuff.
That's right.
And it comes from leadership, man. We just
does.
it's across the board. We don't have it.
does.
And then, by the way, this is not isolated to Chicago. This is
No, that's
nationwide
right.
in a bunch of cities.
It is. And COVID really kind of exacerbated all
Yeah.
those issues.
Yeah.
It just exacerbated all those issues. I mean, I almost believe it's going to take a kind of divine leadership, like a Martin Luther King type person,
man. Yeah.
that really can speak to the core of all of our qualities. And, we've had this conversation, I think, before, but, the problem in politics now is that we focus on the 2.5% here, 2.5% fringe issues.
Yeah, man.
Instead of the 95% that we all kind of can agree on. We want to be safe. We want to have good education. We want freedom, right? Yeah. We need to focus more on that instead of, dividing everybody, So, sometimes it takes a bad circumstance for us to kind of force ourselves to realize that, like what happened over COVID.
Yeah, right.
But we also have very short-term memories.
right. Yeah.
There was
We
some
were at
real
fights
goodwill
in
there
Tennessee.
going for a while.
For about a week.
Right after 9/11, everybody galvanized.
Yeah,
and then
sure,
5
man.
minutes later, we're fighting again.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest generation got there because, unfortunately, we had to go to World War II. And we came back and designed some pretty good programs and worked together on a common mission. All right. I know you're a busy guy. I'm going to ask you some questions and get you going. All right, ready? Of course. These are more fun. All right. So on this topic, what was the last thing you changed your mind about?
Oh, geez. Let's see. I have to think about that. Let's circle back on that question.
Okay, we're going to circle back.
I'll let that one marinate.
Best purchase you've recently made under $100?
Probably a book. I bought a book on recently. I bought a book on Paris.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's probably the best purchase I've made.
Are you going to Paris soon?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Exactly. So at night I kind of go to bed like reading
learning about Paris.
Eating in next month.
You're going to eat really well. All right. You on the topic of eating, you can eat dinner with anybody in history. Who is it?
Oh, geez, that's a good one. Can I have two?
Yeah, man. Have the party.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. One of my heroes always growing up was Martin Luther King.
Sure.
I really like to, really understand his viewpoints on a lot of things, because he was a different person, I'm sure, than I mean, he was a real guy.
Yeah, of course.
That would certainly be one. This is a kind of a weird one, but it'd be somebody it would either be like a Bob Marley.
Okay.
Or like a Prince,
I would love either one. I'll let you pick.
I mean, just to see what makes those guys tick. I mean, you think about a guy like Bob Marley and the impact that he had on the world with his music.
Crazy, man.
And everybody likes Bob Marley music.
Everybody.
You could be in the country, you could be in any inner city.
And it gets you in a certain mood.
And you never get tired of it.
Never.
Like that song comes on, you're never like, I've heard that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty profound. That's pretty profound.
Okay. So, you're a big Bears fan. Is Justin Fields the quarterback of the future?
I think that it's going to be really hard for him to shake, the losses. He fumbles the ball too much, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's a turnover machine.
Right. He's a turnover machine. And, I do think he's mentally strong, and I do think he's got the skill sets to do it. But
he's fast. He's strong.
The organization is so broken right now.
Yeah, coach has got to go.
The organization is so broken. I'd hate to see him go somewhere else and have success,
which I could see happen.
Yes, but I think he's going to need a fresh start. I mean, look at Baker Mayfield has kind of had a resurgence, but Baker Mayfield had more wins.
Right.
But people do discount the fact that the Bears just totally disintegrated their defense. I mean, they got rid of some very, very good players.
Yeah.
You know, Roquan Smith is tearing it up.
He's a stud.
So, you know, there was a lot of expectations that you have a quarterback that's going to fix it with a terrible line.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so they put a lot of responsibility on him to turn this team around without the building blocks of it.
Got it.
And they've got to stop dumpster diving and, you know, penny pinching, trying to, we got this guy for $3 million, or we got this coach that nobody's heard of before.
They got to sell the team.
Right.
That family's just got.
Thank you.
The old lady's got to move on. God
Thank
bless
you.
her. She's 200 years old.
Right.
And they got to sell the team.
Right.
And
It's
I don't know.
time.
I mean, that team, the third largest TV market's going to get $6 billion. I mean,
I
what's
know.
the number? You know?
I know. Yeah, it's like when the Clippers sold. You
Yeah.
know, they were like, everybody was like, oh, geez.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
then
you're like-
we're talking about the Bears.
I know.
So, yeah, I mean, the Bears, you know, there's a joke that I was telling somebody the other day. I was like, you know, you're from Chicago when your whole weekend is ruined because you watched a Bears game. You know, I mean, we keep investing our souls and
Yeah, man.
hope, you know, that we're going to get one out of the next 5 games. We're going to win. And, you know, we're up by 3 and we get our hopes up, and then only for it to be, you
That's
know,
fandom.
Yeah.
I'm a Dolphins fan.
And I can't shake it.
No.
can't shake it.
I'm
There's
not
just
switching
no
teams
way.
at this point.
I
I'm all in.
can't. I can't. It's awful. You know, I mean, I'm fortunate that, you know, I've got other teams that I can root for. So I lived in Kansas City for 6 years.
Okay.
Before they were, you know, really
Yeah.
good. They were a solid team. So I started rooting for them a little bit. And you know, Marino years, my folks had a place
Yeah.
down here, so I would come down and watch a lot of games. So, you know, I'm happy to see them win, but it's not in my blood.
No,
like, you
man.
know,
You're a Bears through and through.
Yeah, it's tough.
All right, back to the question. Something
Yes.
you've changed your mind about.
Oh, okay. Something I've changed my mind about, like in the last year.
Whatever you want, man.
Well, you know,
Recently, last couple years.
yeah, I mean, it's just a tough question. Well, you know, we could talk about coaching. You know,
Okay.
there was a time where I was saying, you know what, I've coached my last year, you know, because it's a lot to deal
Yeah.
with. But, you know, we had not such a great team to start off the season this year, and seeing where these kids have gone, you know, from, you know, you feel like they couldn't throw, you know, ball from third to first base,
Yeah.
and now we're actually playing some baseball, and it's so rewarding. And the kids, you know, coming and giving you the feedback and
Yeah.
saying, you know, coach, you know, I didn't know I could do this, or to see that smile on their face. It's just so rewarding.
The
So I
coaching
feel
and
like-
development is very
really is.
rewarding.
Yeah, it really is. So, you know, I was gonna try to kind of take a step back and maybe assist.
Yeah.
But I also realized that I'm kind of used to calling the shots.
So you want to be
know?
that coach?
Yeah. And I'm like, if I'm gonna go through all this stuff,
I'm in. Yeah.
I'm in.
I'm
Yeah.
in.
So that's probably the thing I changed my mind most recently.
All right, that's a good
Yeah.
last one. You've bought in brands and run them.
Mhm.
Is there a brand out there that you'd love to get your hands on? Something that you think you could turn around?
Ooh, that's good. Geez, that's a tough question too. Well, I've got one answer that I can't say.
Okay, all right.
I've got one answer that I can't say. I might lose a lot of business. No, but let's see here. There is, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
There's so many. Like I was thinking, like Reebok was such a powerhouse. Like when we were kids, right?
yeah.
I'm like, I just see the stuff that they lay out. I'm
Right.
like, man, that.
You know, the minute I walk out of here, I'm going to say, "Oh,
Yeah,
you know,
you'll name 5.
yeah."
Right.
I'm gonna be like, "Oh, I would have." Oh, yeah, because if you open up stuff like that, I mean, like Sony. I mean,
Yeah,
Sony
well,
used to be
100%.
the household name for every device.
Yeah.
Now they're kind of middling. I think that's a powerhouse brand that, you know, doesn't get the shine that it should.
Yeah.
You know, Walkman and, you know, all that stuff.
Dude, they had the market,
Right.
and then Apple came and
Right.
ate them for lunch.
Yeah, Apple came and ate it up for, you know, the buds and all this
Yeah.
other stuff. That's one that they should still be, you know, should be out there. That's for sure.
Well, good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much.
Oh, man, it was great.
Buy a lot of Affy Tapple and
Or
all of
Mrs.
his
Printables.
or Printables.
Mrs. Printables is awesome.
Next time you come on, you'll bring me a whole box.
Yeah.
and,
So, you know, you're going to not like me because,
Okay.
you know, you're obviously a very fit gentleman. So the Mrs. Printables, we have these pretzel rods that we dip in caramel,
I'm in, man. I don't
and
care.
then we enrobe them in chocolate.
I'm in.
And
I'm in.
they are extremely addictive,
I'm in.
but they're worth it.
And
They're
it'll
worth
be
it.
my bad day.
Yeah,
It'll be my bad
exactly.
day.
It's totally worth it.
Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely,
I really appreciate
man.
it,
It's been
brother.
a pleasure.
Be
Yeah.
good.